Do any of you have questions before the guides carry on?
I felt a bit of anger when you were speaking. I feel a bit of shame that I don't particularly like being on this planet.
Yeah. It's very common.
Yeah.
Guess why? One of the biggest reasons that people struggle to stay on the planet is because we're at the opposite stage of the evolutionary cycle from where Atlantis collapsed, and therefore the end of Lemuria. So we go through these 2,126 year phases. So we went out of the age of Pisces, we're now in Aquarius. But if you look at all 12 of those stages that make up the 26,000 year cycle, when you come to the opposite side, in other words 13,000 years later, there is something that has to be integrated in order for the whole of humanity to continue on their spiral of evolution. That is why all of the stuff about Lemuria and Atlantis is coming up. It doesn't matter if you're interested in it or if you know about it or not. Guess what? Still going to come up. And a lot of it comes up as fear, a lot of it comes up as anger. There is a lot of anger in human beings that people don't necessarily know where it's coming from, but let's say you have anger at the government. You know, it's quite common. So the government, we feel that this is this group of people who are just controlling us. How can they just control us? They, as it has developed through the Piscean age, are patriarchal. Now, if you came into consciousness in Lemuria, a very goddess-like, right-brained, intuitive, loving, dancing, flowing, ocean-loving, dolphin and whale-loving civilization, in that crossover into Atlantis, it became much more masculine, much more ego, mind-based, because as soon as you have that ego predominance in a society, they will be controlling. And as it developed, it got more and more controlling. In fact, none of it was good or bad. It was humanity trying to find a way to exist on the planet. And in fact, when the Atlanteans really kicked in with their control agenda, it was actually for a good reason. It was because as the society got bigger and bigger and they spread further and further away, the original priests and the original leaders who had as their absolute priority the spiritual evolution of the society wanted to put things in place to control the people that went further away, because it was obvious that if they had no control over them, that they would go away from the spiritual path. A lot of anger that comes up at this time is about being controlled. And a lot of us have authority issues. So one of my issues, it doesn't happen anymore because I no longer park in places that I'm not supposed to. But in London, I always was getting tickets. When I first moved here, I just couldn't believe how many places you weren't allowed to park. So I was just like, oh, I'm just going into the shop, you know. And when I would get that ticket, I would just literally lose the plot, particularly if the person was still there. I'm like, no, I'm moving the car. Sorry, love, I've already written it out. No. You know, like I lose the plot in the high street. And in me, it was about some authority fining me, punishing me for something that was like, I thought, fairly innocent. And so it comes out in different ways, in partnerships, in societies and things, but a lot of that anger and wanting to leave, wanting to go back to the stars and everything, it is literally why this workshop is taking place. It's because a lot of the uncomfortable feelings in us, it doesn't matter whether it's insecurity, inability to speak up, it's fear of being controlled, the need to be controlling, It doesn't matter what it is. We all have these parts of us that are not serving us. Sometimes anger does serve you because it's the way that you get to like speak up for yourself. Sometimes anger is appropriate because it's how we learn to make our boundaries, and yeah, we all know that from the toddler world. As soon as they're told no. But so it doesn't surprise me that anger came up, and it could be for the reason that I'm saying, and this desire to sort of leave the planet. How many of you have wanted to leave? So sometimes literally suicidal, and sometimes it's kind of like, oh, life's so boring, I want to be with my star brothers and sisters. It happens in different ways, but there are none of us here right now, none of us that didn't choose to come down here at a pretty difficult time, because this pretty difficult time is also the most amazing time that has ever happened on our planet.